Wait, Tabu, and what are you doing throwing papers all over the place?
I'm looking for an invoice for a sound system and cables that I received yesterday, but I can't find it.
You know there is a way of keeping all this in one place and available to you as and when you need it.
I really wish there was one, because the way these invoices grow legs and disappear.
I believe this is what you're looking for.
Now how did it get there?
Tabo! Do you know that with EFRIS, you can stay on track of all your business transactions and improve on your record keeping?
How so?
Katituliku computer with EFRIS. I just search using the fiscal document number and I retrieve the records I'm looking for. Bookkeeping becomes simple after that.
Kapo, awesome, yeah.
I began using URAs Kakasa solutions and now I'm in charge of my business. And you can as well.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
That's my little angel Rose. Together with millions of other children, my daughter Rose is assured of learning something new every day. Moses, my husband, just like many other commercial farmers, has his business supported so he can provide for us. When my other little one was on the way, even with my pregnancy complications, it was a quick, smooth ride to Mulago Specialized Women and Neonatal Hospital. Also, my new baby was able to make it through his first days with the help of specialized equipment thanks to the reliable electricity which has also been extended throughout the country. All this and more has been made possible because of you.
Join us and together let's do more for our country. Get your free tin at www.ura.go.ug.
Thank you for paying your taxes.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
A program on URA TV that is designed to bring you regular updates of URA's collections against the intended target. I am called Noella Nassel, the host of this show. The update is the revenue target that we have is 22.4 trillion. And as of the first quarter, already at least over 10 trillion of it has been collected. You can be assured that the URA troops are in the gutters looking for that last coin. And it's a combined effort, so we call upon the ministries, departments, agencies, and all citizens. Get a TIN number, register, and pay your taxes. Do your due obligation and do pay your taxes. We are excited to bring you today's segment where we are going to be talking about the effects of the final investment decision on revenue mobilization. The final investment decision was announced on 2nd February 2022. Yes, and that makes allowance for Uganda's oil and gas to be developed. And we have in there Total Energies, Sinuk, UNOC, and then the Tanzania Petroleum Development Corporation right in there. The FID announcement, that's the final investment decision, signified the commitment of these oil companies to invest close to $10 billion to develop Uganda's oil and gas resources. And that will be through the implementation of the Tilenga project and the Kingfisher project, and also the East African crude oil pipeline, also known as Jacob. Well, we're excited to bring you this segment today, and I'm excited, very excited to host for URA. He is one of our very own. He is the Director Legal and Corporate Affairs from Petroleum Authority Uganda, Mr. Ali Sekatawa. We welcome you home.
Thank you. Thank you.
This place is not new to him, yes. And our very own Assistant Commissioner, Petroleum and Mining, Sandra Kaitari.
Thank you, Noella. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. You're very welcome. Well, Mr. Ali Sekatawa, we are rich. Once the FID was signed, I know that the feeling in the country is that we are very rich, but we need you, first and foremost, to paint a picture. We know that the Constitution allows for the government to own petroleum, or this particular, the petroleum reserves that we have on behalf of every Ugandan. So Ugandans would say we are rich, but some would say that would be like putting your edibles in the hands of that matron in that boarding school. You don't know whether to trust or not to trust. We want you to paint a picture of what that means to Ugandans. And also we know that there are 3 government entities deep in that. We have our Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. We also have the Petroleum Authority Uganda. We also have UNOC deep in there. So people would say, why do we have 3 different agencies deep in this? What are they all doing? You're welcome to paint a picture to our dear viewers.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here. As you said, I'm one of of this place.
Yes.
And I'm happy. It's a beautiful place. It's my first time to see the building. It's very good to come inside here because I'm one of the people who were on the foundation team for this building to start. So I'm very happy with what I've seen. In respect to the FID, yes, it's an exciting period for this country and for Uganda and even for domestic revenue mobilization. So what was decided was what is called a final investment decision, which we've been preparing for the last 10 years or so, because the companies had put almost 17 conditions for them to make investment decision. They required infrastructure, roads. As you know, we've done almost 8 oil roads. They required power, a certain level of power, so a power line was taken to Bulisa. The project required internet of a certain level, that was taken. It required an airport. That airport now is almost 90% or 70% to 80%. Land, the project footprint, that, and then what we call project authorizations, environmental studies and so on. So what happened on February was an endorsement by the private sector that they are happy with the investment climate in this country and they are ready to invest that amount. The amount, as you said, is close to 10 billion. But the whole project, as you know, we have 3 projects. We have Tilenga, which is being taken on by Total, taken forward. We have Kingfisher, which is being taken forward by Sinok, and that's for the upstream. And then we have the pipeline, which is being taken on by Total, Sinok, UNOC, and TPDC in one company. So the combined 3 will have between 10 and even 15 billions eventually. Why is it exciting for us? It is that work has started. So far, as I speak now, the law requires that we approve all contracts, and we've approved contracts worth $6 billion as we speak today. From 1st February to today, $6 billion worth of contracts. From a revenue point of view, revenue mobilization point of view, I think you can now see what part of that revenue is supposed to be retained in the country. The law establishes PAU to regulate the sector and monitor. It establishes UNOC, Uganda National Oil Company, to take forward the commercial ventures. So, for example, in the pipeline, where government decided to take 15% participation interest, UNOC is going to be the government nominee in that company. So it will be a company, we regulate it at arm's length, and then in the upstream, the government share of crude is supposed to be taken for selling by UNOC. So that's the difference between PAU and UNOC. We do the regulation, UNOC is doing the commercial part. The moment we finish the laws or we agree that we are going to have shares in this company, the holder of those shares is Uganda National Oil Company. And then, of course, we have the ministry, which is the overall policy overseer. Specifically for revenue mobilization, the law puts PAU1 as a protector of revenue. It says that PAU should ensure that all government revenue, including taxes, are properly collected in the sector. And it also mandates us to share information with URA for purposes of collecting taxes. And therefore, we are working very closely to make sure that we maximize any revenues arising from this FID.
I wanted you to clarify, you mentioned the upstream. I wanted you to clarify that petroleum value chain, the upstream, the midstream, the downstream, and perhaps the different government bodies, you know, are they all together handling all those, you know, those stages, or, you know, UNOC is handling the upstream and then, you know, the midstream being handled by PAU?
Okay. The petroleum value chain has 3 phases. It has the upstream, it has the midstream, and the downstream. So the upstream is what you call the looking for. It is exploration and appraisal. It is when the companies come or government goes to an area and says, we think there is oil here, and we are going to explore. So that's the exploration part. It has its regime, it has its laws, it has its contracts that relate to it. In respect who plays what, for upstream, UNOC plays a part because it is an explorer, and when people are exploring, we agree on what is called in the agreements government participation interest, which is now like 15% in the current contract. That participation interest is taken forward by UNOC and then regulated by PAU. But the actual agreement, licensing, is done by the ministry. So the 3 of us are there in the upstream. When we go to the and upstream is exploration, development, and production. So the development phase, we were in exploration, we looked and confirmed that we have commercial reserve.
Yes.
The development phase is the one now that has started. It is the development of the infrastructure required to bring the crude out of the ground. So it's the one we are going to do for the next 3 years. Okay? After we are done with that, there is what is called production. Production now is the actual producing. All that is upstream. And in all that, the ministry licensing, PAU regulates and monitors, and UNOC takes forward the commercial. The midstream is the commercialization of the reserve. It's the infrastructure that changes what you have produced. For example, after we've done the facility and we extract this crude, the next question is, what do you do with it? So the midstream now are the facilities, for example, the pipeline that is going to move that crude from the Albertine, which is landlocked. Remember, Uganda is landlocked, to the coast on an international market. So that pipeline is part of the midstream. It's a commercialization facility. Or the refinery, which is supposed to refine this crude and make it a final product. So because we are doing the pipeline, and then we shall do the refinery. Or a storage facility, which is supposed to store that crude, that petroleum, what we call white petroleum, for purposes of consumption. Again, in the midstream, the minister licenses and gives policy. UNOC does the commercial, and PAU does the monitoring and regulation. Now, when you go to the downstream, it is what we all know in Uganda. It is like Shell, Total, Agip, the actual final items that give, that sell the final products.
To the consumers.
Yes, and that is an industry that has been here in this country. Now, for that industry, the current policy is it was left with the minister. The ministry is still regulating it, not PAU. However, UNOC, by law, is allowed to open a petrol station at an appropriate time. And therefore, when they open that petrol station to sell Like when you go all over the world, you will find ADNOC, you will find the BP, you will find those petrol stations that are owned by national oil companies.
Okay.
So when
By the
UNOC,
state.
by the state.
On behalf of
On
the
behalf,
citizens.
yes. UNOC is owned by government, 51% Ministry of Energy, 49 Ministry of Finance. So it's a government entity. So when UNOC opens up a petrol station and you see a petrol station around with UNOC, then they will have done business in the downstream, and the law allows that. But for that regulation, PAU doesn't go to that level. Thank you.
One more question. It seems like a worthy investment. I've been down to Kavale International Airport. I must say it's very exciting. It's exciting. It feels like something that is going to be bigger than, you know, our Entebbe at some point. But to see so much injected in a project, I think we need to paint to our dear listeners how much exactly do we have in terms of barrels, you know, the oil that is in there. How many production licenses have we given out? How many exploration licenses have we given out? Is it worth it? We know that at least there is still 85% of the Albertine Graben that is unlicensed. So just paint a picture of how rich we are and why we're investing this much. Yes.
In terms of confirmed commercial reserves, what you need to know is this project is being taken forward based on the conservative estimates of the confirmed commercial reserves. So we have 6.5 billion barrels confirmed commercial reserves. But based on the current technology and the environmental aspects, because you can only extract in an environmentally friendly manner. So based on the current technology, we can only extract 1.4 billion barrels. So this project, Tilenga, Kingfisher, Eco, its commercials are all based on that 1.4 billion barrels. And as they explore better technology to extract the other between 1.4 and 6, which does not compromise our reservoirs, our rocks. Because as you know, oil is down in the rocks.
Yes.
We have water bodies and so on. The way it is extracted there has to meet a certain minimum standard. Then, in terms of licensing, yes, we've probably licensed 10 to 20% of the Albertine Graben. Some people will tell you 40, depending on what parameters are being used. And now there is the current licensing round to make sure that we get new licenses on board. We are currently negotiating with two entities. One is Australian, and another one is actually our national oil company. It wants a block. Then secondly, what exploration licenses do we have? Right now we have 3 which are going on. We have a company called AMA Energy. It's from Australia. It is exploring that side of Untoroko. For the tax collectors, especially the customs people, should know that area. They should see our people there. Those ones are taking forward an exploration, and we are a bit optimistic of what is that side. And then we have another company from Nigeria called Oranto. It also has an exploration license for 2 blocks, although those blocks are on the same area. It is called stratigraphic licensing. They have been licensed on the same land, but two blocks. And again, those ones are also taking up exploration in an area called Kanyatava. So currently we have those 3 licenses, then we have an ongoing licensing round. And then the other now production licenses are the ones being held by Total and Sinok. And now UNOC has backed in for the areas where the reserves have been confirmed.
Okay, so what happens for those that are exploring and they don't find anything?
when you don't find the arguments we have, and it has happened before. For example, when I was here, we had an issue in legal and tax and DT of a company called Neptune. It explored, and another one called Dominion. They explored and they did not find. And they had spent close to $50 million. The law we have and the arguments we have is that if you don't find, you are supposed to restore the land, and then we all say, nice meeting you. I don't owe you, you don't owe me. So that time, that case, I think they wanted to claim the tax that had arisen out of their exploration, and we said no. So that's the regime. If they don't find, you say nice meeting you, but when they find, then they apply for a production license, and then you go into the development stage.
Agreement. All right, thank you, Ali. I will come to you. Wow, what is URA's role, in the oil and gas sector?
Thank you very much, Noela. URA's role is to deliver this excitement you're talking about. Is to tell you eventually for Ugandans to decide, are we rich? That's the only way we can determine. Now, PAU will regulate, the geologists will do their best to make sure that the 1.4 billion barrels come out. But URA's role is to ensure, and this is stipulated in the National Oil and Gas Policy of 2008. First of all, our role as URA is to collect all petroleum revenues. What are petroleum revenues? Petroleum revenues are all taxes envisaged under the Income Tax Act. They are government share of petroleum, proceeds from a government share of petroleum, the sale of the state participation, royalties, signature bonuses, surface rentals. So that is what petroleum revenues are. And there are also revenues that ordinarily should be funds of the authority. And when I say the authority, I mean Petroleum Authority of Uganda. They include training fees. They include bonuses other than signature bonuses, rentals other than surface rentals. Those two, although they are funds of the authority, are supposed to be collected through URA as advised by the Permanent Secretary to the Treasury. So Uganda Revenue Authority's role is to ensure that we collect the correct revenues from our petroleum activities so that we deliver Uganda to middle status income and out of poverty. That is number one. Number two, we're supposed to advise on the impact of oil and gas revenues on the economy. Number three, we're supposed to advise policy, to advise Ministry of Finance as they come out with laws and regulations to govern the taxation of the sector. So what have we done as URA in preparation for collection of those revenues? We've set up the Petroleum and Mining Division, which is a specialized division meant to handle the taxation and compliance management of the licensees, who are currently just two. Maybe we can add UNOC, licensees being Total Energies and CNOOC. Those are our primary taxpayers. And then first level or tier one contractors who are providing services that are drilling or oil field services, because we determine that these are the services that are solely and exclusively for the oil and gas activities. So that's what we're doing so far. It is URA's role. We're the conduit through which the public will trust that all the work that has been done since 2006 and before was worth Uganda waiting for was worth the bother. So yeah, it is URA that will deliver value. If Ugandans are going to trust all government officials and everybody who has had a hand in coming up to oil production, it is URA collecting the correct revenues that will have everybody applauding and Ugandans happy that indeed we are rich.
Wow. Sandra, what strategy does URA have to ensure that our oil is not lost in mispricing deals between affiliates?
Yeah. So we are quite aware that for the kind of companies we're dealing with, the issue is not going to be on late filing or not filing. It's not going to be late payment or non-payment. No, the issue is going to be in misdeclaration. So we are aware of that. And we know there is a lot of information asymmetry between us and the oil companies. But we have, as you are aware, we have a section under the Large Taxpayers Office that is in charge of international taxation. And we've been working closely with them as a petroleum division to build capacity to be able to handle such matters. We know it's not going to be a vouching exercise here, and that's why we have a specialized team. We are bringing on board 10 new staff to be able to deliver this.
Wow. I'll come to you, Ali. Thank you, Sandra. Let's talk about policy and regulation. What regulation do we have in place that is going to safeguard oil?
Okay, thank you. In 2013, there was a set of oil laws that were made based on the 208 National Oil and Gas Policy. So that time, we had the petroleum law for the upstream and the petroleum law for the midstream. And those laws, 2016, have another set of regulations that were made coming out of those 2013 law. And they basically overhauled the old infrastructure, legal infrastructure that was here since 1985. We then had 2015, we had an amendment to the PFMA to make provision for petroleum revenue management. And I think it is what Sandra was referring to, because it's now the one that consolidated and redefined petroleum revenue and put it under fully under the auspices of URA. Of course, we are alive to, I think it is part 9, Sandra, from 208, and the several amendments that have been made to it, which relates to taxation of oil and gas, and the amendments until the latest amendment of 2021. There was an amendment that was passed in 2021, and the consolidated structure is about revenue management laws and tax collection. Then we have the recent ECOP Act, which was passed by Parliament in 2021. And basically that is to make provision for the special structure of ECOP as a transboundary pipeline. Remember, ECOP is a pipeline that is going to pass through Tanzania. It is 1,445 kilometers, but 296, I think, are in Uganda. The other ones are in Tanzania. So 80% of that pipeline is in Tanzania. So what we agreed is that we shall make an ECOP law in Uganda. Also, the Tanzanians will make their laws, amend their laws, so that you have one law which is asymmetrical across up to the border. And then we have the treaties. We signed a treaty, which is called an intergovernment agreement. It is a treaty now. It was ratified by Parliament. Again, that one is for ECOP. Of course, and then you will have several agreements that arise from that structure. So that's the what you call the legal infrastructure that is around, and it's one of the pre-FID conditions, because when we discovered oil in 2006, the legal regime which was there would not support these projects to be executed properly and based on international best practice. So this journey partly was to reaffirm our legal infrastructure and make sure that it meets the international standard. And the confirmation on February of FID was assurance to the country, to the bankers, to the financiers, that Uganda's legal regime is robust and it meets international standard.
Okay, there's a point at which tax concessions, incentives work for us, but I know that there's been a conversation over some incentives that we give, and after a while, if companies have broken even, businesses are making much more, but then they're still, they still have all these tax cuts and breaks. The East African Crude Oil Pipeline Act provides for a number of tax concessions, like the 10-year CIT holiday. Okay, it reduces the withholding tax of 5% on technical services. Isn't there a point at which it's going to hurt our country? Or at what point do we feel like we shall have a fair trade? Yes, we have it in place for now to promote, and to make sure at least by 2015 we're having our oil out there. But at what point do we have a fair place of trade? Won't it hurt our collections, Sandra?
That's quite interesting, because the man sitting next to me,
yes, at
some point said I was going to be, I think he said, the manager in charge of filing and returns and no tax. But the incentive, there are reasons why we had to give incentives. That pipeline, the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, is a utility pipeline. Its role, majorly, is to get our crude from the fields in Kabale to Tanga, because we are a landlocked country. So our crude has to get to the port somehow, otherwise it would be difficult to commercialize, right? So this pipeline was not meant to be one that made large profits or huge profits, but still shareholders must get value for their money that they invest in the project. So yes, you're talking about several incentives were given by both Uganda and Tanzania under the intergovernmental agreement. For instance, we don't have transit fees. Tanzania had to forfeit transit fees. Countries where there's a cross-border pipeline world over, transit fees have to be paid. But then we look at the value that the pipeline, its construction, its operations will have to the society, to the people around it. And selfishly, maybe to say for Uganda, the cheaper the pipeline, the more value we have for our upstream crude. That is what is most important. What is valuable to us and where we must keep value is upstream. So for us, we believe we negotiated the best deal and kept value for the upstream oil. And that is how we shall be able to get the excitement that you want. Otherwise, we have a more expensive pipeline may have caused a devaluation of what we could have got upstream.
Okay, maybe for where our people could benefit, we have the national content contract. When you talk about upstream, Ugandans will be looking at, Total and, all the big companies that are not Ugandan owned. Ali, you need to show us where we can benefit as Ugandans. Or we would like to know the percentage of Ugandans really across this petroleum value chain, or where they could benefit, or where they could be involved. What opportunities are there?
Okay, thank you. Probably I should add a footnote on what Sandra has said about the incentive regime.
Okay.
What you need to keep in mind is that we have a natural resource. It has been lying underground, as HE says, for the last 200 million years. We've been lucky that it has been discovered in our generation. We've been preparing for it since 2006. So as I said earlier, that when you are going to extract that resource, the moment it comes on board, you then ask yourself, what am I going to do with it?
Yes.
We are a landlocked country in the middle of nowhere, near DRC. That's where we discovered. You said you've been to that area. You know that even the roads, they were not there. People who went there, if you read a book by Kashambuzi, you can, it's called A Matter of Faith. He's one of the people. They used to walk for 4 days just to reach the site. That area where you went for 30 minutes, because there was no road, there is no water body that is going there. It's just deep in the jungle. Remember, when someone talks about 1990, for some of you who are probably old enough, that's the time of of CON, that's the time of ADF. And those are the operational areas. When you go there, ask where the Konyi camp was, or ask which part was attacked by the ADF. And at a certain point, we actually lost one of the explorers due to that banditry. So that is the context you need to look at in the context of these incentives. So now when you want to develop, you want to reach the cost, to de-risk the project. So Tanzania offered those incentives to the pipeline. Uganda matched them. And the idea is, one, we have to de-risk the project. Two, we need to reach the cost at the cheapest rate possible. Three, when we reach the cost, it means that all these other exploration activities we are doing, they have a pipeline that takes them to the coast. But if we reach there at the cheapest cost, because this pipeline charges a tariff for transporting the crude, if you put higher taxes on it, they pass on those taxes to the person who is transporting the product through the pipeline. So who is transporting the product through the pipeline? Who? It is us.
It's cheaper.
So if you put higher tax here, they bill you, the project becomes higher, then you pay this side. So ultimately, you are scoring an own goal. So that regime has been balanced in that the third parties, for example, the contractors and subcontractors are going to be paying. But overall, for the project, give it a certain relief for it to make sure that it was. So I thought I should really put that concept, that footnote, so that you understand the historical perspective. How are Ugandans going to participate?
Maybe before you come to that, so still in line with the tax incentives. So do we have any for the refineries as well?
The refinery has not yet it hasn't reached FID. We are currently, right now as I speak, we are in negotiations with the refinery. They submitted the FEED, the front engineering design, government is reviewing it, and then the negotiations for its package, legal, commercial, fiscal, is ongoing. And it's actually, that's why I've not mentioned it, because it is not part of this FID. We are still going forward on the FID for the refinery. So coming to the benefits from a national content perspective, again, the regime we have from 2013 introduced the concept of national content. It introduced the concept of priority of provision of Ugandan goods and services, if they are available, JV if they are not, and international. And we are following that formula religiously. So the contracts so far awarded, mostly first, what we call Tier 1 contract, they are huge, and their requirements, most of them, I think, many of them, the companies are of an international nature. However, the stage we are on is what we call Tier 2 and Tier 3, and that is where we expect many Ugandan companies to come through. Part of the approval conditions we have relates actually to what you call national content commitment. So we expect, and we've seen now that the subcontract level is going to Ugandans. Our performance on national content has been around 28 to 30%, but our anticipation is that we should be able at this stage to go up to 40%. You should understand that the industry has very specialized machinery, skills, and so on, and therefore most of that money the other 60% also goes to, for example, if you need an iPhone, you can be nationalistic as you want, we can be patriotic as you want, but you can only get an iPhone from Apple. So that part of the iPhone from Apple is part of this, so we carve it out. It comes in within the 60. Then we see, okay, we've gotten an iPhone from Apple, but can we do a charger supplied by a Ugandan? Okay? And that's the conversation we are having. The second layer, you should be able to see it, is for employment. Employment, maximum Ugandans. You only go international if there are no Ugandans. And I think many of you, if you check on the PAU website, UNOC website, Total website, SINOC website, all these contractors now, they have started advertising for jobs. I'm not saying the tax collectors should leave, but you should tell your brothers and sisters, because these people are required. They are not doing it out of whatever. They are required that before you come for a work permit recommendation from PAU for an expert, you first demonstrate that there is no Ugandan who can do that job. And then we are running what is called the National Supplier Database for Ugandan companies, and then the National Oil and Gas Talent Register. For any Ugandan who feels like he's talented in oil, you apply there. Why? Because when the companies come to us to say, I have failed to get a qualified person, we first refer to that database also to check whether actually there is no one who is qualified before we recommend for a work permit. When you look at that infrastructure, it guarantees Ugandan participation, and then the revenue part, I think you can look at what remains.
Yes, but then what are you doing in terms of capacity building? Because there's a time I applied to do a course in petroleum and gas, and you know the pricing, and you know maybe some Ugandans are not able to afford, you know to be able to do such courses. We know that in the upstream, you won't find a Ugandan company, right there. But what are we doing to develop our own to be able to handle that?
We are actually doing a lot. First, we did a manpower study some years back, and it informed government of the capacity of Ugandans. There are like 3-4 structured layers for capacity building, and the results are tangible now, because so far as I speak, close to 74% of the people running all these companies, licensed companies, are Ugandan. 70 at all levels, from management up to the highest level, lowest level, 74%. So there's a structured way. First, there's a facility for Ugandans, for government employees, that supports government employees. 2, we have identified institutes, specialized institutes, like Uganda Petroleum Institute in Chigumba. If you've been there, or if you haven't, please visit it. Government has supported it and given it first-class facilities. If you go there, you will not believe that you are actually in Chigumba. First-class facilities to make sure that they can train Ugandans. And then we've tried, because the skills gap indicated, that, for example, the certification requirements required international by American Welding Society and so on. So those certification requirements, we went to for example, American Welding Society and all the other people that offer them, and applied as government. We requested them that, can you come and set up camp here? They have now granted those licenses to Uganda Petroleum Institute. We have also encouraged, even Chichwamba now is also coming up with special items. We've encouraged private players. For example, here in Bugolobi, just up close, there's a world-class facility called Sunmaker, and it's a private venture, but it came up, it received full support from government, and they are training people, depending on the skills gap, those who need. And then government is actually doing a scholarship scheme. It's called the Albertine Region Scholarship Scheme for over 600 talents in the country. Again, that one is going through. And we are seeing the results, because right now, if you go to the field, you will find that maybe almost all the lower level jobs now, maximum almost 100%, they are Ugandans. You will now see that technical jobs, you will see many Ugandans. And when you run an advert, you actually see many qualified Ugandans. So those deliberate steps are actually paying off. And we are very optimistic that that Ugandans are going to run this project, either from the private companies or from government and so on in terms of the resource capacity around. And Sandra probably has the returns and the employment, whatever. I think she can also see whether there is the payees coming in properly, and from that arm.
Wow. Yes, Sandra, actually, you know, when oil is discovered, all of a sudden there's an excitement that the country is going to develop. There'll be better infrastructure. There'll be, you know, employment opportunities. I heard the minister of energy, on that day that the FEED was announced, I think she said about 120,000 jobs or 160,000 jobs, you know, expected. That is payee. That is, you know, talk about how much you think we'll be able to collect that will boost. Currently, we are at 13% tax to GDP ratio. Do you see us just shooting, you know, just through oil if we're producing by 2025? Do you see us hitting that 18% that URA has set for 2024, 2025, in about 5 years?
Well, thank you very much, Noella. If URA hits 18 at 2024, 2025, it will not be because of oil.
Of the oil, yes.
It will not be because of oil. But the IMF did a study about 4 or 5 years ago, and using the current reserves that we have, the 1.4 billion barrels, I think they used a price of crude of about $60 per barrel. They used capex of about $10 to $15 billion. And they projected, the IMF projected that there'd be an increment of 4 percentage points on GDP. But as you rightly said yourself and Ali here, that is only 15% of the Albertine Graben. A country that has a drilling success rate of 88%, we expect a whole lot more oil discoveries, and expect definitely the tax to GDP ratio to be impacted positively by the oil and gas industry. Yeah, so right now, actually we use 1042 million barrels when we project. But today, and we use a price of $60 per barrel. Of course, we use sensitivity, sometimes $80 per barrel, $55 per barrel. But what am I trying to say? The crude oil price today is $105 per barrel. I mean, largely because of the Russia-Ukraine war. So, yes, 2024, 25, maybe not. 25, 26, 27, yes, there will definitely be a huge impact. Because after first oil, we expect, I think, after 3 years, we expect a plateau also of about, 3 years, 4 years. And in those years, we'll be collecting about 8 trillion in just petroleum revenues. And this does not include money we expect from UNOC. We've taken out the proceeds of UNOC as a state participant. So yes, 8 trillion, around 20, 30, 31, 32, 8 trillion contribution by just the oil and gas industry. You talked about us collecting 22 trillion now. So look at 8 trillion coming from just that one sector in such a short period of time, and bearing in mind that we have exploration work going on, we have new licensing round, and the possibility of new technology, because see, this is a 25-year project.
Yes.
So the possibility of increasing that 1042 upwards towards 6.2 based on technology that will be available at the time, and whether the cost of removing the crude oil from the ground at that cost will be viable. So just to simply answer your question, yes, the IMF has predicted that 4 percentage points increment on the GDP.
All right, we have come to the end of our program today. There'll be just one question for each of our panelists today. You talked about Russia, Ukraine. There was a borderman, you know, that decided to charge more than he normally does for a certain short distance. And when he was asked, you know, why, he said, anti-Russia, Ukraine. But Ali, when it comes down to the common or the, you know, citizen or Muntu Wawansi, as, you know, the cost of living coming down, are we going to have some of this oil floated into our market so that the price of gas, you know, diesel or petroleum, yes, is reduced? Are we going to see that cost come down? Are we going to see some of it, you know, maybe if, you know, open that fuel station or those fuel stations around the country, are we going to see our people benefit from the oil products themselves?
Thank you. First of all, the Russia situation now, our first oil target is 2025. So regardless of what is happening, that situation will still, if the international climate will remain. The second is that actually the 2025 is for extraction of crude, not the refined product. Because what we consume here is a refined product. It's petroleum, it is diesel. It's what we call a white product. The actual refinery project is the one where the FID has not been done. So the other crude can't go into our cars and so on and so forth. So for purposes of managing expectations, when we talk of first oil, it is not first oil in your car. Okay? It is first oil which is in crude form. The refinery project, as I said, its FID has not been done. We have done this FID. We expect it to come on stream, other factors constant, around 2026, 2027. That's the first. And that's the project that is supposed to have the final product for people. To answer now the border guy, we are under a world market. We cannot stop white products coming in. And our regime is based on what you call import parity. So what is then going to happen is, what we expect is that the vagaries of economics will bring down those, whatever, the prices. Government is not going to sit down and set and say, please charge like 4,000. That one is not going to happen because we are in a liberal economy. However, because now we are importing white petroleum from a refinery in Russia or in China or UAE, it comes to Mombasa, goes on to a pipeline to Eldoret, you drive it by truck to here. When we are doing it ourselves from Bolisa and transporting it by pipeline to here in Impiji, we expect that the costs of producing that are going to be low, and therefore the prices will be lower. However, you need to look and say, okay, which are the oil producing countries in the world? America, UK, in the North Sea, Norway. How much is a liter of petroleum today? It is still high. You have seen inflation there. You've seen riots there. You've seen the increase in the barrel. I mean the gallon. They sell in gallons. What does it show you? It shows you that oil is a product that is dictated by international events. Even if you are a producer, these other international things will always affect you. That's all I have to say in very many words for Omuntu Owansi.
Yes, all right. Sandra, your second last question, then we just come to our parting shots. Yes, so how is URA organized to coordinate with all the other agencies in the oil and gas revenue mobilization? Are we signing MOUs with them?
Yes, Noela, we, as we've already mentioned them, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, early told us what their role is. The Uganda National Oil Company, the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Finance is a mother ministry, and there's another one, the Office of the Auditor General. So those are the entities of government that we work with very closely, and we have MOUs with most of them. Of course, we don't need an MOU with the Ministry of Finance, and I think we shall not be entering an MOU with the Ministry of Energy. But we did not enter MOUs because we were unable to engage with each other. But we had to create a framework within which, for instance, we can share the information that PAU has that we will need to be able to collect taxes. So generally speaking, the framework that we're using is the Memorandum of Association, Memorandum of Understanding, and we have another one with, I don't know if that one is concluded, but we wanted to do one with, this thing of my head is called what?
Chamber of Mines.
Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. I am not sure that we concluded that, but we're not only doing with government, but we also want to bring the private sector on board so that we can share information, do tax sensitization, education, so that we encourage voluntary compliance from them. Yes, so we are using Memoranda of Understanding.
Okay, thank you. And on to our last and our parting shots. We do have people from Petroleum Authority, Uganda, SINOC, UNOC, very many Ugandans that are interested in this particular topic watching right now. So, Ali, what would you say to them as your parting shot?
I think I would only say thank you. I think all of them are doing a great service to this country. Let's keep our focus on the ball. Let's not lose sight of the ball. I think we are on the right track. And for the tax collectors, to thank you for the service that you're doing for this country. Again, to ask you to look at this industry. It is not coffee, it is not agriculture, it is an industry that has come. In terms of context, I would like to probably emphasize the fact that if our GDP is 45 billion US dollars, this industry, if you combine all, as I said, FID has not been done for everything, but if you do all of them, we are expecting close to 20 billion US dollars or more, which is almost half of the GDP. It means that in terms of thinking, in terms of strategy, in terms of structure, including in URA, because URA is our, you know, I'm the former chairman of FC here. It is our number 9. It is our attacking footballer, is the scoring guy. In terms of structuring that context, the fact that this is going to be half of our GDP should be really put in focus in terms of skilling, in terms of strategy, in terms of priority, because we actually count on you a lot. If we do everything all of us are doing, but URA can't score, we shall not have done something. So really we are ready to support, but for you to know that we rely and count on you as our scoring partner.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Yes, Sandra.
Thank you very much. I think I'll stop exactly where Ali stopped, and as regards URA being the scoring partner, and I think we have prepared, we are ready. Of course, learning does not stop, skilling does not end. We continue to improve each day, otherwise we'd be dead. So for the licensees who are listening to us, the government agencies who are watching, let's work together, let's collaborate, let's ensure that we meet or perhaps exceed the expectations of Ugandans. Thank you very much.
Wow, there you have it. The call is for all that are interested in this sector to do run. If you're opening up a company, get a TIN number, register, and for all our dear Ugandans to be very patriotic about everything that is happening in our country, to be very involved in the conversations that are going around on our collections. Currently, our debt to GDP ratio is high, about 52%. And as we see all these different sectors develop in our country, we see that we are able to finance our own national budget. Thank you for watching the Revenue Pulse today. Catch us in 2 weeks as we bring you the next segment. God bless you.
Acquiring a tin is now easier than ever before with a new interface that is brief, simple, and cuts out all the excess fields from previous applications. All you need is your national ID or driver's license or passports and internet access, and you're good to go. No more waiting in long queues, as you can now acquire a tin instantly from wherever you are. Remember, it's free. Experience our new and improved modern interface that is user-friendly.
Thank you for paying your taxes.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
Thank you.